Hello, how are you? We have a letter from Diddy Combs' mother that she released on Instagram, and I just want to read some of it and react to it. It says, I come to you today as a mother that is devastated and profoundly saddened by the allegations made against my son, Sean Combs. It is heartbreaking to see my son judged not for the truth, but for a narrative created out of lies. To bear witness what seems to be like a public lynching of my son before he has had the opportunity to prove his innocence is a pain too unbearable to put into words. Like every human being, my son deserves to have his day in court, to finally share his side and to prove his innocence. I am not here to portray my son as perfect because he's not. He has made mistakes in his past, as we all have. My son may not have been entirely truthful about certain things, such as denying he has ever gotten violent with an ex-girlfriend when the hotel's surveillance shows otherwise. Sometimes the truth and a lie become so closely intertwined that it becomes terrifying to admit one part of the story, especially when that truth is outside the norm or is too complicated to be believed. Now, I don't understand that sentence, but I'll go back to that in a little bit. This is why I believe my son's civil legal team opted to settle the ex-girlfriend's lawsuit instead of contesting it until the end, resulting in a ricochet effect as the federal government used this decision against my son by interpreting it as an admission of guilt. It is important to recognize that none of us, regardless of our status, are immune to fear and mistakes. Not being entirely straightforward about one issue does not mean my son is guilty of the repulsive allegations and the grave charges leveled against him. Many individuals who were wrongfully convicted and later exonerated had their freedom taken away from them not because they were guilty of the crimes they were accused of, but because it didn't fit the image of what this society considers to be a good person. History has shown us how individuals can be wrongfully convicted due to their past actions or mistakes. Now, Mrs. Combs, Miss Combs, I understand what you're trying to say. I think it was a well-worded letter, but I don't agree with you using the imagery of lynching. In this sentence, it says, to bear witness what seems to be like a public lynching of my son before he has had the opportunity to prove his innocence is a pain too unbearable to put into words. Now, when you think of lynching, you think of somebody who is being punished or being unjustly prosecuted and sentenced to death without having, had a trial or anything like that. This is not the case with Diddy. And when you think of lynching, I think of like people that are poor and disadvantaged and, they just, the law doesn't work for them. They just don't get any justice. I don't think that Diddy, falls into that category. I mean, this guy has met with all types of dignitaries, politicians. He just got the key to the city in New York. So he has had access to all different types of people. He has a law firm that is advocating for him. I don't think that the terminology of him being lynched applies here, okay? Also, that sentence that I read that was kind of confusing. It says, sometimes the truth and a lie become so closely intertwined that it becomes terrifying to admit one part of the story, especially when that truth is outside the norm or is too complicated to be believed. I don't understand that sentence. I don't know what she was referring to, but then she goes on to talk about them settling the case with Cassie Ventura. Now, I understand a mother's concern about her son that's locked up, no matter how old he is. I mean, he's 54 years old. It doesn't matter. Your mother is going to be there. Miss Combs is going to worry about her son. But the charges that Diddy has are charges that are brought by the federal prosecutor. And they usually don't bring charges like this unless not unless they have evidence to support it. And Diddy has been denied bail twice by two different judges, and I don't think they would be doing that if there was not evidence that they were looking at. And the fact that even though Diddy has a lot of connections and knows a lot of powerful people, I don't remember hearing anybody speaking up for him and saying, hey, this is unjust what's happening to him. I mean, of course, the mother is going to speak up. Yes, the mother is going to protect her child. Yes, that's how it's supposed to be. That's a natural reaction. But those of us who are not the mother, we can see that there probably is something here. And we're not denying him his day in court. And we would like to see him present his case and, judge based on the facts. And he will get a fair trial. Because of his status, because of his wealth, he will get a fair trial. It will be on a level playing field. You will have the federal government on one side, and you will have him and his team on the other side, and we will see what's going to happen. So I understand why she wrote this letter, and it's probably something that was suggested by the attorneys, but what is the mother supposed to say? My son is guilty. No, she's not going to say that. She's going to support her son. And as far as she's probably concerned, she probably doesn't know the facts either, because if her son was doing these things, she would probably be the last person to know. The mother is usually the last person to know when you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. All right? Nobody's going to tell your mother that you're doing these things. I mean, she's not going to be in the loop, and she shouldn't be in the loop. So, I understand how she feels. She's very protective of her son, but it seems like there are facts here that led them to charge him with all of these serious crimes, like trafficking, kidnapping, forced labor. I mean, it's a litany of charges that this man has. And so I would like to see the evidence that he has to refute these charges. It's a lot. And the fact that he did say on multiple occasions after he settled the lawsuit with Cassie, he said that none of her allegations were true and that he was innocent of all of these different charges against him. And then we find out that he actually did beat this lady down. He brutalized this woman. And it didn't look like it didn't look like it was the first time. You would think that somebody who can do this the way he did it has been doing this for a while, and is very arrogant to think that he can be in a hotel where we all know that there's plenty of surveillance, that, he can think that he can actually get away with this. And he did get away with it for the most part. He was able to get the video. I think he paid $50,000 for the video. So he's been doing this. In the court of public opinion, we see signs that he has, exhibited this behavior in the past. It's just that simple. And then there's reports from people who have been victimized by him. There's reports from his security people who have talked about him abusing women and beating up women and stuff like that. So I know what the mother's saying, and I know the mother is going to protect her son, and I know that the mother is definitely out of the loop in terms of what he has doing. At least I hope she is. And she may even feel that what she's saying here is true, that, he's innocent. But we're going to have to wait and see about that. And he will get a fair trial because he's got money. And from my experience, most inmates that come to jail, and if this is your first time tuning in, I'm a former correction officer. So I'm speaking to the jail experience for most inmates, and they don't have the type of representation that Diddy is going to have, and has already. I mean, they prepared this letter, and it's gone out to the public. It's from the law firm, and he has lawyers that are having press conferences on the courthouse steps for him. He's had two bail hearings where he's had his representation of his choice, and he's going to have a trial with his team of attorneys present, examining all the evidence. That's 90% more than the average person that gets arrested has. Most people cannot afford an attorney, and they have to rely on the state to appoint a legal aid attorney, which is not probably equipped to deal with the federal government on this level. But Diddy is not going to have that problem. Most inmates have lawyers that are extremely busy. They have multiple cases, and they don't get an opportunity to speak to their lawyers regularly, if ever, until they get to court. You know, these lawyers are in the courtrooms and in the courthouse all day long. So most of the time when inmates are in jail trying to reach these attorneys, they can't get them. They'll get a secretary, they'll have to leave a message and things like that. They don't have that type of access. They don't get attorney visits. Diddy's probably getting attorney visits right now. You know, people are discussing evidence and strategies with him and asking him what he thinks. The average person that gets arrested does not get that treatment. This is all the more reason why people should not engage in criminality that may land them in jail, because you're not going to get the equal amount of justice that he's going to get. You're not going to get the trial that he's going to get. You're not going to have a team of attorneys protecting your rights and looking for any little technicality that may help them get you out. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get experts that are going around and investigating and asking people questions and stuff like that. You're not going to get all of that. You're not going to get expert witnesses that are paid by you to represent you in terms of all the electronic information that they're going to bring out concerning his text messages, his emails, his videos. You know, Diddy's going to have specialists, experts in all of these areas. The average person that gets arrested doesn't have that, and Diddy's going to have a trial, most likely, and he's going to have experts that are advising his lawyers who to select to be on the jury. The average inmate does not have that. That's the reasons why people should not engage in criminal activity that may land them in jail, because you are going to probably lose in the court of law, and you're going to, you know, suffer the consequences because you don't have this type of representation. You're not going to get the fair trial that he's going to get. And that's just the facts of the matter. It's just like walking into a casino. The odds are stacked against you. If you're going to come to jail, believe that the odds are stacked against you. And it's going to be very tough for you to prove your innocence, unlike Sean Combs, who has all the advantages. So to call his situation like a public lynching, I don't think so. There seems to be a lot of evidence that says that he may have done this. And just in general, the mothers of people who commit crimes get it the worst. I mean, they really suffer because of the crimes of their children, because they do love their kids and they do care. I've seen it. You know, I've worked visits where these mothers come in and, you know, they're distraught, they're stressed out, you know, they're prematurely aging because they're worried about their children, and they should be, you know, because jail is very dangerous and risky. Things can happen in jail. Innocent people are harmed, killed, stabbed, shanked, you know, and other things in jail. So yes, mothers are distraught and afraid, fearful for their child's safety, and I don't think Diddy's moms is any different, you know. These are all the more reasons why people should not commit crimes. If you love your moms, you know, don't put her through this. Don't go to jail because she's going to be worried about you. And I see Diddy's mom's in this letter going through the same thing. Miss Combs is going through the same thing as an average mom, not knowing whether her son is going to see the light of day again, not knowing whether she's going to be able to see her son outside of a jail or a prison. You know, it is stressful to any mother. Even though Diddy is 54 years old, it doesn't stop for a mom. You know, I had an inmate that was a personal friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine that killed 5 people, and I had the misfortune or the fortune to actually work with him as his officer during some of his incarceration, and his mother would come up to jail even though he had killed 5 people and had been sentenced to the death penalty. His mother was there. I mean, she was there coming to the visits regularly to see about him, and stressed to the hilt, because she knew that her son, she was never going to see him free again. That's very stressful. And I'm sure that Sean's mother cannot rest. She's thinking about that. That thing might happen to her son, where her son may be in jail for the rest of her life. So I understand the fact, what she's saying in this letter, but just looking at it objectively, I think there's evidence for him to be charged. I don't think that he's being lynched. I don't think he's being railroaded. And he has representation to protect his rights, which is a lot more than most people that get locked up have. So I just wanted to share that with you. And if there's anything else that's coming out concerning Diddy, I will be here to tell you about it. And thanks once again for stopping by and checking me out. And until next time, as always, peace and stay safe.